The Switch 2 rumors are once again heating up.
We're on week, I've lost count.
It's awful.
Of people saying, oh, this is the week. Now it's finally happening. The Switch 2 is getting revealed.
Oh, yeah.
Now all my hopes and dreams are coming true, and it hasn't happened.
No.
But there was more rumblings that happened over the weekend from a certain PH Brazil, who is known to be a fairly credible person with information, saying that something is potentially going to happen this week.
Alarmo 2.
Then
Just
people started to really rally around the idea of something happening either October 28th or the 29th. Today is the 28th as we're recording this. Nothing has happened.
No.
And we typically stay far away from
You can
these
see my face and how I'm not amused.
rumory conversations, but it seems to be such an ongoing thing, and there was so much activity around this that I do think that we have something to add to this conversation, which is, what is the Nintendo perspective when it comes to picking a date to make is there an announcement more major than this right now? Not really.
Right.
So it's like, I'm staking the next, 10 years of the company on this. Like, how are they looking at and evaluating a date to potentially do it? And I do want to add a giant disclaimer to say, this could still happen. We don't know. We don't have inside information. We're not saying guarantee this isn't going to happen. We're just sharing our experiences of working at Nintendo and how they look at these dates. And I think we're here to say it's not optimal.
No, it's not optimal. When Nintendo thinks about like the time to introduce something for the first time, they are doing so much work. And we worked on the team that did this work to find the most optimal date, the time and place where people have nothing to distract them. They look at so many different factors from within the company and external factors as well. And just looking at where we are right now, this is a very suboptimal date. I was on the communication team at Nintendo still, and they were asking us to put together an announcement strategy for Switch 2, and they came and asked me,
Would you recommend the
week of October 28th for this announcement for the next hardware generation? Would you recommend that? I would say no. I would say, please
Strong
don't.
No.
Strong no.
Right. So let's go into some of the reasons why and some of the things that people keep bringing up as reasons why it could potentially be. Let's start with this one. There is an investor update meeting, a financial update from Nintendo happening on 11/5. And a lot of people, this always gets brought up. Well, they don't want to disappoint the investors, so we must announce the brand new hardware. And I think we really need to squash this line of thinking because this is absolutely not how the company thinks at all.
Yeah, Nintendo is not like a typical tech company or any company really with shareholders. Like they don't operate in that mindset where they're beholden to their shareholders.
Or that there must be growth after growth after growth at all costs.
Exactly. They're so calculated in the way that they conceive of the product lineup and stuff like that. And it's all not because they're trying to please their shareholders or make sure the shareholders are happy. Sure, they have to participate in these meetings and they have to show growth as a company overall, but they're not super focused on every time we have a shareholder meeting, we have to show this crazy, business plan, business growth.
Right. And for them, these sorts of investor meetings or financial updates are a very short-term opportunity. It happens. We share the information. There might be some sort of fluctuation in how we perceived or in the stock price or whatever else, but then we move on with our life because we have bigger picture, longer term aspirations. And that's what's truly important that we don't want to jeopardize. It's like they do multiple of these a year.
Right.
So it's like, why is this the one that makes sense? So again, this keeps getting brought up again and again. So please let us reiterate, the company does not look at these events that way.
That's right.
Strongly, please.
Strongly. Please stop.
The next point is, and this is something that we've brought up a lot. We are now, it is late October. We are really getting into the high time of the holiday shopping season. OND, Q4, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
But we're in it, and Nintendo really got they pay a lot of attention to this. You would not believe the percentage of Nintendo of America's sales that comes strictly in the fourth quarter of the year.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And there was all of this data. It's like, hey, people start holiday shopping earlier and earlier. You might be surprised. Like most people think, oh, Black Friday is when it starts. It's like, no, like people who work in this space know it starts like the beginning of October is when people start making those decisions and buying things that they'll sock away.
Or start saving up for things. Yeah.
So they really start thinking about it then. So you might say like, oh, well, we're not in that yet. We definitely are.
We're way in it. We're even further in than we think
we are. Deep. We're pretty deep into it.
Halloween is this week, and the calendar only speeds up after that. So it is very much deep in holiday season, holiday planning. Nintendo will do anything at all costs to have a successful holiday season. This is a very important time of year for them. We would always like go through times where, like, let's say, in the summertime sales are a little bit down or the financials are a little bit down. The through line every time was, don't worry, we'll make it all up in the holiday season. Sales are a little down in the summer or earlier in the year, don't worry about it. We're going to be fine. We're going to have a huge holiday. We're going to put all of our focus on the holiday season and we'll be fine. We'll come out on top.
And Nintendo put out like kind of a holiday themed trailer a few weeks ago and people are like, well, why are they doing that? Again, we are in the holiday season.
Yeah.
They want people to start thinking of that. They announced the holiday bundles with the Mario Kart bundle.
There we go.
That will live in eternity.
Yes.
They announced that a long time ago because they know like this is when people start thinking about it.
Right.
And again, on the flip side, going back to the investor update, if I'm an investor and they announced the Switch 2 this week, it's like, yeah, that's nice. You could have announced that whenever. I'm actually wondering how you're going to recoup that money that you just lost.
During the holiday season.
Because you took people's eye off the ball by announcing this thing in the teeth of the holiday season.
Yeah.
Please answer that question, Mr. Furukawa.
There's going to be some toe tapping then.
Yes.
The other thing, too, is this is a little bit of a softer thing, but just getting into the mindset of Nintendo, this is something that I can see them doing as well, is they might feel a little bit like emotionally connected to this holiday season being the last one for Switch. Like they want Switch, which was so massively successful, to really go out on its last holiday season on a high. Why would they jeopardize that? Like,
they need the momentum to carry, because this thing isn't coming out this week.
Right.
If it happens, it's just, oh, this is the first announcement. You have a long way to go. So they need momentum.
But what a great feather in the cap, as well as the great strategy of momentum, to have this incredible launch to end cycle for this amazing console generation for Nintendo. Like if they can say like for 8 years, we have had so much success with this console, even in its 8th holiday season, we made sure that this thing like was on a high when it's at its last, holiday life cycle, and now we can move on to the next thing. Like what a great way to conclude this like amazing generation for them. So I think that actually means a lot to them.
Right.
And they do care about this kind of stuff. Like they care about that. So I think they would really want to like preserve that if they can.
And again, we're not saying that this isn't going to happen, but for them to jeopardize a big holiday season like that, like they would have to have a good reason to push them in that direction because it would be extremely unlikely for them to do that because that was just all hands on deck for the last like 6+ months of the year. It's like, how are we making this the biggest holiday ever?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, one more point that we want to talk about, and it's a huge one. We're less than 10 days away from a presidential election in the United States. And with every day that we get closer, it sucks up all of the air in all of the conversations. It's kind of looming over everything in this country. And in 2020 and every other election before it, we spent so much time analyzing that. It's like we're not in politics. We don't work in this, but it's like the company wanted to know. It's like, how are people taking this? How are people talking about this? Like, how are people feeling on it? Mm-hmm. And this is one where there's a lot of uneasiness around it. So it just doesn't make sense to announce this thing that you want the whole world and mainstream enthusiast, like whatever. You need everybody to pay attention to this. Like a lot of people are very distracted right now.
That's true.
So this makes this is a huge reason why this is a very suboptimal week and time of year.
And that's why we were saying that when we used to make these kinds of recommendations and we would build these really, big announcement strategies. I mean, we built the announcement strategies for Switch when we were at the company. Like we looked at so many factors that were unrelated to video games. You look at things that are like external things that are happening in the world. You look at things internally at the company from a business perspective. But like you do consider all of the factors and even factors beyond the realm of like video games for something like this, that really plays into your decision of like what is the optimal time date to do it. And yeah, this election is quite contentious and definitely is taking a lot of attention away from everyone. I think it's just dominating all the news headlines. Like, how would you compete with that?
And it's ramping up day by day.
Exactly.
So every day that passes, like by tomorrow, like we talked about the 29th, that's tomorrow. It's like, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow?
I know.
That's going to take everybody's attention and put it on that.
Right.
And let me say, in 2020, like nobody wanted anything to happen around that election because it was like the country is going to be sucked up into this.
Not even smaller announcements. We avoided the election
in every which way.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that. I don't see enough people bringing that up. And again, maybe you're in another country, but again, this is the biggest market for Nintendo, the United States, part of North America. So like they really do have to take that under consideration.
They're 100% on like daily reporting
Yes.
from the US side on this right now. I can guarantee you that. There are daily reports updating on what the social conversation, what the media headlines are. And you know what? If you want a story in the New York Times about your next console, you sure as heck aren't going to get it during the election cycle.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of ink left, as they say, to dedicate to other things.
Yeah, that kind of like mainstream, huge news outlet coverage that Nintendo is absolutely going to want to get for their next console next console announcement. You are not going to get it right now.
Yeah.
So, yes. Anyways.
So consider us skeptics about what is being put out there because of these reasons. Again, we are not saying it absolutely cannot happen, but again, based on the analysis and the steps that we would take to really evaluate a date at our time at Nintendo, this is not a date that we would recommend. This is not a week that we would recommend.
No.
We remain team early 2025.
I am team 2025, yes.
That's where we remain, but we shall see. We just wanted to share this with all of you as these conversations happen. So,
but you know what? Anything can happen. Anything is possible. Let's just see what happens, I guess. Yes. All right. We're going to wrap it up, and we'll see you later.
Bye.